My name is Emily and I am 30 years old. Right now, I am sitting here with a story that still shakes me to my core whenever I think about it. It's a story about love, betrayal, heartbreak, and the sweetest revenge I could have ever imagined. A revenge that didn't come from anger alone but from a deep, raw wound that only a cheating husband could carve into a woman, especially when she's at her most vulnerable. I was pregnant when it all happened. Now, before I tell you what I did, let me just ask you something. Where are you watching from? I'd love to know if these stories are reaching people in every corner of the world. Drop it in the comments below, and while you're at it, join this growing community of justice seekers, because here we don't just tell stories, we serve karma. Alright, back to my story. I met Daniel when I was 23. He was the kind of man who could charm a room with just his smile. He worked in finance, wore his confidence like a second skin, and knew exactly what to say to make a woman feel like the only person in the world. I won't lie to you, I fell hard and I fell fast. Our relationship was a whirlwind. Dinners that stretched past midnight, road trips where we sang to the radio with the windows down, long talks about the future. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my partner, my anchor, my dream of forever. Within 2 years he proposed and I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. The wedding was everything I had hoped for. White flowers, fairy lights, and the promise of a life built on love and loyalty. My parents adored him. My friends envied me. I believed every single word of his vows. We talked about children constantly. How many we wanted. What we would name them. He was fixated on one name in particular. Ethan. A name he said he had always wanted to give his son. If I ever have a boy, he'll be Ethan, he told me once, his eyes glowing with excitement. I laughed at his certainty but secretly found it sweet. It was one of those dreams I wanted to give him because I loved him. And for a while life was perfect. Or at least it seemed that way. Fast forward a few years and we finally got the news we had been waiting for. I was pregnant. The joy that filled our home was indescribable. Daniel kissed my belly every night before bed, whispered promises to our unborn child, and even started a little notebook of potential names if the baby was a girl. He told me he couldn't wait to meet little Ethan. I was glowing not just from pregnancy but from happiness. I felt like everything was aligning, like all the dreams we had built were finally becoming real. I imagined myself cradling our baby while Daniel held us both close, the perfect family we always talked about. But reality has a cruel way of shattering illusions. It started with late nights. At first, Daniel blamed work. The office is crazy, he said, loosening his tie when he finally came through the door. I'm doing this for us, for the baby. And I wanted to believe him, so I did. Then there were the weekends. Business trips, he said. Meetings out of town. Networking dinners. Always something that pulled him away. I brushed it off. After all, wasn't he just being the provider he promised he'd be? But a pregnant woman's intuition is sharper than most people think. And mine was screaming at me that something wasn't right. It was little things at first. A faint perfume on his shirt that wasn't mine. The way he guarded his phone like it was a state secret. How he suddenly became distant in bed, his kisses mechanical instead of tender. I told myself I was overthinking, that hormones were messing with me, but deep down, a pit of dread was forming in my stomach. The truth didn't come crashing down all at once. It unraveled slowly, painfully, like pulling a thread until the whole sweater falls apart. One night, Daniel fell asleep on the couch with his phone still in his hand. The screen lit up with a message and my heart stopped when I saw the name. Sophie. At first I thought nothing of it. Sophie was common enough. But then I saw the words underneath. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. I remember sitting there frozen. My hands shook, my chest tightened, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to wake him up, to scream, to throw the phone in his face. But instead I did something I never thought I'd do. I read the messages. And with every word, every emoji, every declaration of passion, my world shattered. They weren't just sleeping together. They were in love. He told her things he used to tell me. Promises, sweet nothings, even the same jokes he had once whispered into my ear. I was 7 months pregnant and my husband was having an affair. The next few weeks were hell. I couldn't confront him right away. I wanted to, but I was terrified of what it would mean. My marriage? My child's future? My dignity? I cried into my pillow at night, careful not to let him hear. I plastered a smile on my face during the day, pretending everything was fine while inside I was crumbling. My body ached from carrying a child and my heart ached from carrying his betrayal. I wanted to scream, to tell everyone what he had done, but something held me back. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Because while I was drowning in heartbreak, another part of me, darker, colder, was planning. I wanted him to pay. Not just for me but for our child. He had broken the sacred trust of a family, and that wasn't something I could forgive. And then I remembered it. The one thing he had always wanted more than anything else. The baby name. One night as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the idea hit me like a bolt of lightning. He had spent years talking about his dream of having a son named Ethan. He had practically claimed the name, engraved it in his heart. What if I took that from him? It might sound petty to someone on the outside, but to me it was poetic justice. He had taken my trust, my happiness, my sense of security during the most vulnerable time of my life. And I was going to take from him something he could never replace. That night my tears turned into a wicked smile. For the first time in weeks I felt a flicker of power. But before I could set my plan in motion, I had to confront him. I'll never forget that night. We were sitting at the dinner table. I had made his favorite, roast chicken with mashed potatoes, because part of me wanted to see if he could choke it down knowing what I knew. I looked across the table at him, his face lit by the soft glow of the lamp, and I asked, "Daniel, are you happy?" He blinked, startled by the question. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I leaned forward, my voice steady even though my insides were trembling. Because I know about Sophie. The fork clattered from his hand. His face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. And in that silence I knew I had him. That was just the beginning. His excuses, his lies, his desperate attempts to explain. I let him dig his own grave with every word. But little did he know I wasn't just planning to leave him. I was planning something far worse. Because when our baby was born, I was going to make sure he felt the sting of betrayal in the most personal way possible. And it all started with the name he thought would always be his. When I told Daniel that I knew about Sophie, the silence in the room was almost deafening. His face drained of color, and for the first time in years I saw something in him I never thought I would: fear. He stammered, "It's not what you think." But I had heard that line before. From movies, from stories, from every cheater caught red-handed. And I was done playing the naive wife. "It's exactly what I think," I said coldly. "You've been sneaking around with another woman while your wife is carrying your child." He pushed back from the table, pacing like a caged animal. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." I almost laughed at the absurdity. As if tripping and falling into someone else's bed was an accident. My hands were shaking, but I held my voice steady. "You destroyed this family, Daniel. You destroyed me." His eyes watered, pathetic crocodile tears. "But I love you. I love our baby. Sophie was a mistake. A mistake that had been going on for months. A mistake he had whispered sweet words to. A mistake he had made while I lay at home, swollen and exhausted, carrying his child." I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "Save your lies for someone who cares." "Because I don't. Not anymore." And for the first time I saw the mask slip. His pleading turned to anger, then to desperation. "Don't do this. We can fix it." But there was no fixing what he had broken. After that night I moved into the guest room. I couldn't stand to be near him, couldn't stand the smell of his cologne or the sound of his voice. Every time I looked at him, all I could see was Sophie. He begged me to go to counseling. He sent me flowers, gifts, endless texts during the day. But it was all noise. I knew better. I knew cheaters rarely changed, and even if he did, I could never erase the images from my mind. The hardest part was pretending in front of my parents and friends. I was 7 months pregnant, and the last thing I wanted was to deal with questions or pity. So I kept the facade up, smiling at baby showers, nodding along when people said how lucky I was to have a husband like Daniel. If only they knew. At night I would press my hands against my belly and whisper to my baby, "It's just you and me now. And we're going to be okay." But underneath the heartbreak, the cold flame of revenge burned brighter. Daniel became obsessed with baby names again. He clung to the idea like it was his last shred of control. Every night he would bring up Ethan, telling me how perfect it was, how he couldn't wait to hold his son and call him by that name. It was almost laughable. Here he was, a man who betrayed his wife in the cruelest way possible, thinking he still had the right to name our child. I played along, nodding, murmuring, "We'll see," while inside I was smiling. Because I had already decided. He wasn't going to get Ethan. In fact, he wasn't going to get anything he wanted. The day finally came. After hours of labor, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. When the nurse placed him in my arms, tears streamed down my face. He was perfect. Tiny fingers, soft skin, a cry that pierced my heart and healed it at the same time. Daniel was there, of course, hovering with his fake smile, waiting for me to say the name he had been dreaming of for years. He even leaned close and whispered, "Our little Ethan." I looked down at my son, then back at the man who betrayed me, and I felt a surge of power. This moment was mine, not his. So I said clear and proud, "His name is Lucas." Daniel froze. "What? No," and we agreed. "We didn't agree," I cut him off sharply. "You decided. But this is my child, my son, and his name is Lucas." The nurse smiled, jotting it down without hesitation. "Lucas it is. Beautiful choice." And just like that, the one thing Daniel thought was his was gone. The look on his face was priceless. Anger, disbelief, heartbreak all rolled into one. He couldn't say anything without causing a scene, so he swallowed it down, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. But I knew. I had won. We went home and Daniel pretended to accept it, but I could see the cracks. He would slip sometimes, calling the baby Ethan, only for me to correct him coldly. "His name is Lucas. Don't forget it." Every time I said it, I saw him flinch. It was a knife twisting deeper into the wound. Meanwhile, his affair with Sophie didn't just vanish. I found out later that he kept seeing her, though he tried to hide it better. But the truth always has a way of surfacing. One of his co-workers slipped up, mentioning he had been spotted out with his girlfriend. Girlfriend. Not wife. Not mother of his child. Girlfriend. That was the final straw. I filed for divorce when Lucas was 3 months old. My lawyer was ruthless, and I made sure every detail of his affair came to light. The judge wasn't impressed with Daniel's behavior, especially not with a newborn involved. I got full custody. He got visitation. And the name Ethan became nothing more than a ghost of a dream he could never touch. I could see the resentment in his eyes every time he picked Lucas up. He never stopped hating the fact that I had taken the one thing he had always wanted. And that made me smile inside. Because he could still see his son, yes. But he could never call him by the name he had longed for. That name was mine to destroy, and I had done it perfectly. Years passed. Lucas grew into a happy, healthy child, and Daniel remained bitter. He tried to push Ethan on Sophie, talking about how he'd name a son with her that one day. But fate had other plans. Their relationship crumbled, and from what I've heard, Sophie left him after she realized he wasn't the loyal man she thought he was. I can't say I was surprised. I moved on. Slowly, carefully, but stronger than ever. Lucas became my world, my reason for everything. Every time I called his name, Lucas, it felt like a reminder. I won. But sometimes revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it doesn't come with screaming or fights or drama. Sometimes, it's as simple as taking away the one thing they thought they could keep, and living your best life while they choke on it. And that's exactly what I did. So to the women out there who've been betrayed, remember this. You don't need to stoop to their level. You don't need to destroy yourself to destroy them. Sometimes the smallest act of defiance is the most powerful. For me, it was a name. And I made sure he would never forget it.